Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Driving the Wheels Off. Today, we're going to be replacing the rear calipers, rotors, and brake pads on the back of my 2001 F-250. So let's get started. If you've been following along with the channel, you know that last week I replaced the calipers, rotors, brake pads, and master cylinder on the front of this truck. Unfortunately, when I checked the rear end, they were as bad or worse than the ones in the front. So I went ahead and ordered the parts, and we're going to get them on here today. For the inside of the caliper, you're going to use a 14 millimeter and move it into a safe place without disconnecting it until we're ready to put the brake line onto the new caliper. Now let's remove the outside of the caliper, and we're going to be using an 18 millimeter to do that. Don't forget to hang on to your 18 millimeter bolts because we will be using those to reattach the new caliper. Now that we have our caliper removed, we're going to take our rubber mallet and we're going to tap around the rotor to get it to come off. Once you have it loose, go ahead and pull it straight out. Now I'm going to use some brake cleaner inside the drum before I replace it. The next step is putting the new rotor back on. And the cool thing about this particular truck is that it's a rotor and drum all in one. Now I'm by no means a mechanic, so I don't know why this is. I believe it's for the parking brake, but if you're a mechanic and you know the answer to that, please throw the answer down in the comments below. Another cool thing about this set of brakes is that right here on the rotor, it tells you which side to put it on. Now let's go ahead and replace the outside of the caliper. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be reusing the 18 millimeter bolts that came out of the truck originally. With the outside of the caliper installed, we can go ahead and put in our brake pad clips. And I don't know if I've mentioned it in previous videos, but I do use the package of ceramic brake grease that they put in the set. And basically what I do is I put a little bit on the ear of the brake pad and then I slide them into the bracket. And you don't have to use a lot, just put a little on there and spread it around on the ear of the brake pad. And then you're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And then you're just gonna slide the brake pad into place in the front, and you'll do the same thing for the brake pad in the back. And we're gonna be using a little bit of that grease on both the top and the bottom. After you're done, we can go ahead and replace the center of the caliper. And I usually get this top bolt started first. That way I can let go of it to get the bottom bolt in place. And if you're enjoying this video, please hit that like and subscribe as it really helps out our channel. Now we're gonna use our 14 millimeter socket and tighten this up. Before we remove the brake line from the old caliper, let's go ahead and remove this little rubber piece. We want to make sure that we get our new copper O-ring ready when reinstalling the brake line. Let's go ahead and remove the brake line from the old caliper. This is also going to be a 14 millimeter. Now let's put in our new copper O-ring and install the brake line into our new caliper. Now that we have that tightened up, we're going to wipe this off and make sure we don't have any leaks. And as you can see, this rear passenger side caliper was completely blown out. Now we're going to come around on the driver's side. Let's go ahead and get this wheel off of here and see how bad this side is. Next, we're going to get the inside of this caliper removed. Again, we're using a 14 millimeter to remove this top and bottom bolt. And just like the other side, we're going to pull this straight out and we're going to set it aside in a safe place, still attached to the brake line so we don't lose a lot of brake fluid in between the replacement. Now, as you can see on this side, it looks like the brake pads aren't nearly as bad. On the rotor, you can see that it is a little bit thinner on the outside versus the inside, but we went ahead and got the set for both sides. We're going to replace everything. Next up is the outside of the caliper. Let's get that removed. Keep in mind, we're going to set these 18 millimeter bolts off to the side because we're going to reuse those later. After getting the caliper completely removed, we're going to take our rubber mallet. We're going to tap around the outsides. Then we're going to pull straight out on the rotor and get it out of there. The next step is using brake cleaner inside the drum. After we have all the inner workings clean, let's go ahead and install our new rotor. It's time to reinstall the outside of the caliper. I'm reusing my 18 millimeter bolts, and I'm going to get my top bolt finger tight first so that it's easier for me to reinstall the bottom bolt. Next, we're going to install our brake pad clips. Also, if you're interested in the set of rotors and calipers and brake pads that I'm using today, I'll have a link in the description below. Don't forget, we're going to put a little bit of this ceramic brake grease on each one of these pad ears. Now that we have the pads installed, let's go ahead and put some grease on these pins for the inside of the caliper. I honestly don't know what to call these things. Are they bolts? Are they pins? Do they have a completely different name that I don't know? Let me know in the comments below. After we get them greased up, slide them back in and make sure that they're seated in the rubber boot properly. And now that we have those in place, let's go ahead and install the inside of our caliper. Now that we have the new caliper tightened up, let's go ahead and remove this protective rubber piece, and let's get this brake line off of the old caliper and wipe it off. Make sure that there's no leaks. Now we're going to get my beautiful wife to help us bleed the brakes. Pump them. Hold. And after you're done bleeding the brakes, go ahead and make sure that you max it out and put your cap back on. Okay, it's time to put the wheels back on and take this thing for a test drive. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.